Well, there's 4.5 inches of rain in this rain gauge. Man, I left last Thursday, there was 0 in there. So in less than a week, we've had 4.5 inches of rain. No, that ought to have made the food plots really grow. Flowers looking good. And then I get back from my bear hunt early. What's it do? It rained 2 inches last night. Wow. Well, here it is, the 20th day of August 2014. Fields are really coming on real well. They should really take off when we get this heat now. Just been, well, like I said, there's 4.5 inches of rain that fell on this field. And I got very little to no erosion on it, thank God. You got some thin spots and they'll start growing in. But very well pleased with it, especially with that much rain. And what you're looking at out through here is pure attraction. And that's going to really take off. It's up now. It's probably close to a good 4 inches of height right now. I'm going to watch the weather. I want it to dry out. And I'll come back in here and give it a dose of 100 pounds per acre recommended of nitrogen. And we got to let it dry out first. Can't be walking around on it. Plus, you want it to be dry so the nitrogen pellet doesn't actually lay right on the leaf. It could burn it. So it's really greened up compared to last year. If you remember last year, the reason I went with pure attraction and forage oat was because last year we had 0 inches of rain. The last week of August was in the high 90s. The first week of September was even hitting 100, and the dirt was powder dry. So it's not that way now. It has plenty of moisture, and it would really be too wet right now. You couldn't plant a food plot now because as wet as that soil is, unless you just scattered it on top of barren dirt, you couldn't tell it because it would just ball up on you. But you can see way back in the back there, it's bringing on the golf course effect. That's something I stated that would happen. And after this week of the high heat and humidity, it really will get going. Well, that's it from the non-typical Norwalkian food plot update. Just got back from bear hunting. Probably should have stayed. Got back, ground saturated. It rained 2 inches last night up in Des Moines. Oh well, that's the way it goes. Well, the sunflowers have done their job for the year. Now they just turn into seed, which the birds will be in there by the thousands picking them. The sorghum is coming on pretty good. I didn't know, it was looking pretty lame there for a while, but now I can see a lot of heads. That's another good source of protein and food for your wildlife. And those forage beans, they're tremendous. Those forage beans are 4 feet tall out there. And just vined, lots and lots of protein. I can see numerous areas where the deer have nipped on them and grazed on them. I kicked out a little yearling deer bedding in here. And when you get out in the middle of that, it's as thick as any Canadian bush. But that's what it was designed for. But you can walk along the edge and you can see how much browsing's been going on. And that's a good thing, because that's what it's for, and it just keeps growing. And I mean, those beans really did fantastic this year. And you also have a crop of weeds in there, but most of the velvet leaf I got out of there. But I can kill off all the other weeds pretty easy with Roundup next year. But those vining beans, as you can see that vine on that bean, they say they can grow 14 to 15 feet long, and I'll tell you what, I never seen, last year they didn't perform as well, but this year they really did. This area here is a little area how you can critique this. As you see, I went up through the middle of that power plant, and now that gives me two options. As the deer come out of the woods, you can make this happen. As they come out of that back trail, which I get a lot of footage from, as they come out, they'll forage in these forage oats somewhat, still slow up a little bit, but eventually they'll traverse down that trail that's cleared out, and it's also planted in forage oats. And I planted it later and didn't get any rain on it. Now it's had plenty of rain, so it's going to take off. It'll grow completely in. But what I got here going is, see that tree over there? That's a mulberry tree. And I have a stand in that tree, and that's a northwest wind stand. And you funneled up your deer to where they're not going to traverse through that thick stuff to get to where they want to go. So they will travel that corridor right there, man-made corridor. And if something to your desire, you feel like you have to shoot something, you might have created a 20-yard shot right there. And over here, where this ladder stand is, this is connected to the same situation. That would be a southwest wind. So regardless, whatever the deer come out here, you would have a favorable wind for a northwest wind, which would be an evening stand, and a favorable wind for a southwest wind. And both of these would be evening stands. And it's almost impossible to hunt on a plot that's not an evening stand, unless you know, I got one that, I'll take that back somewhat. I do have the clover field that I will hunt on in the morning. But most of these big fields, you know, are for nutrients, not hunting. But there again, zoom that in. That sorghum really got some heads on them. And like I say, it turned off a little dry there in July, and they fell behind, but they really took off now. So that's good bird food, dove food. And the deer, once they get those tops on, they'll eat that top completely off. But you can see the height now. You can really tell how tall that power plant got. That's really, that's all 5 foot tall if it's an inch. So it did pretty good. Just surveying the fall crop situation. Yeah, we made some beans. There's quite a few pods. And now with that much rain, I know they're going to fill out. They're going to fill out big time. We're going to have beans. Last year we had beans. We made beans 2 years in a row in a severe drought. And we've had the best growing conditions overall that you're probably ever going to experience in agriculture and food plotting. Now, there are differences. When you're food plotting, you are growing food mainly to stay in the field. And we all know on the agriculture, people are making a living off of it, and rightfully so. They put a lot of money in it. And you put a lot of money in your food plot also. So this year, food plots should be extremely productive. Because I've seen them when it was the other way around, 2 years of drought back to back. It ended up getting a few weeds in there, but with a bad year, I put Roundup on that a couple times, put it on pretty strong, but those beans, or those weeds, had got a pretty good foothold, and I couldn't get them all before the beans got canopied. But they made beans, and they made a lot of beans. And you were there when we were planting them back on May 18th That's 4 months ago. So now you can see the fruits of your labor right along with me. Because we did this together. And we're going to venture down here to the corn that you helped plant. And oh man, we got solid ears. Solid ears of corn. Lots of corn. I left this a little trashy on the weeds because, you know, more trash you leave in there, the corn's growing. Full ears. So, there again, we're in the cornfield that you helped plant. You were right in the planter with me. And so I'm not trying to promote Don Mealey by any shape, form, or whatever. I'm just trying to share my knowledge, what little knowledge I may have, with fellow bow hunters and fellow food plotters. And when I see a guy and he shakes my hand, that's payment full for me. Yep, I'm up in a stand overlooking this field. Off to the left is your power plant. Down the middle are your soybeans. In that far background is nature's crop, those hedge apples. And I think you all learned a lesson last year that deer do eat those hedge apples. And they'll consume every one of them. And then of course you got the corn. So, you know, you have a vast variety of food, and they all different. Power plant high in protein, soybeans high in protein, corn high in carbohydrates and fat. And you put that on the buffet table for your wildlife. And I already won. I'm a hunter and I have killed nothing, but I am so proud, and what lays in front of me is Boone and Crockett worthy of, because as you get more of a hunter, you will turn to be more of a conservationist and a steward of your land or the lands that you hunt. And it gives you a feeling of a whole different feeling. It gives me the same feeling as I scan across this as when I shot my first game animal with a bow, whatever it would be. The excitement and the fulfillment is parallel to any animal that I've ever shot in my lifetime. To know that I'm not just a thrill killer, as so many people go to the field today. And I hate to label people, but that seems how they portray themselves. It's kill, kill, kill. Well, I'm no tree hugger, and anybody that's known Don Mealey since I was born knows what I'm an ass-kicking, get the job done, son of a bitch, kick ass and take names later. Sometimes that got me in trouble, but that's what made my constitution. I'm not a follower, I'm a leader, and I have a hard time following the boy men that call themselves leaders that couldn't lead me out of a one-room closet with a door on it, open and a light on, because they're using my knowledge to catapult their personality gain for whatever that they assume that's worth. But anyhow, getting back to it, it's just so good to give back, and it's such an overwhelming feeling to know that we together, you watching as we did this, so I consider we as part of you and me, we done this together, and this is the fruits of our labor. And we didn't have to kill nothing. We grew things. As a matter of fact, as I'm rambling on, there's a deer right over there by the woods. So yes, Mark Thompson, I can talk on my deer stand, and the animals do come around. Yeah, that doe just walked in there. But, yeah, it's just a new era of hunters, and I'm glad I'm not in that era.